Hello everyone, Ogre27 Kane, and we're back with episode 3 of our month of Zelda. This week's episode is a review of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for the Nintendo Switch. Let's do an overview and find out all about this game. So this is Nintendo's first open-world Zelda game. And I don't really mean first, because technically the original top-down Zeldas were open-world, but this is their first real 3D open-world game. And it's a fantastic game. It's very well built, and it took them a long time, and it shows. The game has amazing graphics, animations, great characters, fantastic story, excellent pacing, just about everything you could say about any video game. There's a reason it has such a score on Metacritic. This game also has amazing combat, which is something we need to get into because it has my only negative that I have about this game. But let's start with the gameplay first. The gameplay in this game is very open, very loose, not a very rigid structure to it. There's a certain set number of goals you're trying to achieve, but none of these goals have to be achieved in any order, and if you're really good at the game, you can find ways around it. This game is definitely an experiment in what true open world games should look like. I know games like Assassin's Creed and Far Cry are fun, but the rigidity of their stories doesn't allow them to have the open world nature of just exploring and stumbling into something. At first I was really irritated with the lack of dungeons in this game. There's only 4 real dungeons. But then when you get into the exploration side and just getting lost into the world, by the time you spent 300 to 500 hours in this world, you kind of realize that it's all well spent. You didn't waste a single minute of that. The amount of ideas and items and environmental puzzles that you can come up with on your own in this game are outstanding. This is like a role player's dream. You really can just get lost and do whatever the heck you want. The towns in this game are very welcoming and open, and the game just has a great flow to it. You don't have to be everything. You can be fast, strong, slow, powerful, weak, whatever you want to finish this game. It really does reward you for your playstyle. So let's get into the story now. Alright, well the story in this game takes place about 100 years after the world was destroyed. Ganon gets loose from his prison, and Link and Zelda are not able to stop him. They're only able to contain him. The game has a great story, and it's told through some really good cutscenes that you actually have to figure out world puzzles to get. And I love that, because if you're not searching for the story, this game does not give it to you. This game just gives you whatever you want. And when I found these story elements and I put them all together, I really fell in love with it. This is definitely the best story for a Zelda game. Ocarina of Time and Link to the Past are great for their gameplay and their puzzle elements, but the story in this game has emotion to it, a certain amount of power that I felt. Zelda's character, Zelda's actress, was fantastic. She really does portray her character well. And my daughter fell in love with her too. She played this game and pretty much modeled herself after Zelda after this. It was pretty funny. The other really cool thing about the story is the way it scales up. You don't really realize the extent of what's going on, and you don't really fully understand where this fits in with the grander scheme or world of Zelda. But as you begin to uncover stuff, it slowly makes itself evident, and you begin to find all the different world elements and pieces from other Zeldas, such as Gerudos and Gorons and everything else. Pretty much everything that you've come to expect or love about a Zelda game is packed in here in some way, some shape, or some form. They really did a lot, and I absolutely love the story in this. Next, let's get into the combat. And the combat has a little contentious for me. So the combat system in this game is really fun. I have no issue with the way the combat actually works. For me, and I'm sure you've heard this complaint before many times, it's the weapon breaking. It can be a little frustrating in the middle of an intense fight to worry about your weapon breaking. One of the most frustrating things for me was I found myself in quite a few boss fights where my weapon would break, and then I was stuck without an answer on how to defeat them. In a different Zelda game, they may have given you different options to beat this boss, but in this game, you have to do things specifically, so if you don't have that weapon or arrow or whatever it takes, then you have to be almost too creative to figure out the puzzle. That's the only sticking point I have about it. Other than that, the combat is absolutely fantastic. I like the parry system, I like being able to use your timed arrow shots, I like the dodge, I like everything about this game. So when I talk about the combat, it is a very, very minor gripe, and it is something I got over right away. It did not impact my gameplay whatsoever once I figured out what to do. It is just not something you expect in a Zelda game. The only other thing I want to say about combat is the armor system in this. And the armor system in this game is my favorite in any Zelda game. I love how everything upgrades and how much variation there is to everything. It's great. So let's get into graphics and animations now. So for the graphics category, the game looks absolutely fantastic. It has a great art style and it holds up pretty well. When I first saw it, I was in utter amazement at how good it looked. But now that I've had a dose of some other really good looking Switch games, such as Metroid Dread, Metroid Prime Remastered, or Mario Odyssey, I know that Nintendo has a lot of tricks up their sleeve, and it makes me really excited for Tears of the Kingdom. The only other thing I want to say about the art style is that it does have a certain amount of cell shading to it, and if you're not a fan of that, you may really watch a few videos before you get into it. But other than that, I really think this is one of the best looking and best running Zelda games that I've played. Alright, now let's talk a little bit about the animations. And the animations in this game are really good. This is definitely the best, smoothest, and best running Zelda game that I think I've played. Skyward Sword looked really good, but it still had a certain amount of stiffness to it. And so did Ocarina of Time, and so did Majora's Mask, and not exactly that humanly kind of aspect to it. This definitely gives Link more of a fleshy outcome. He looks more like a person. And I like that. I really think that all the work they put into it and the extra animations of body movement for all the characters paid off. You don't feel like there's any boring NPCs out there that don't do their job. Everything kind of holds up really well. It's pretty impressive. So I think we should get on to the next category now, the controls and audio. So the controls do their job. They do well enough. I do have a few issues with things, like I don't like having my jump button at the top while my run button's at the bottom. Kind of makes it difficult for specific maneuvers. You do get used to these things, but there's a little bit of difference from some other action-adventure games you may play. The audio itself is a typical Zelda game. It is absolutely amazing, and I wish I could show you some of it. Ganon's castle music is probably the best end dungeon music you will ever hear in any Zelda game. Absolutely best orchestrated score. The work that they put into this game shows in every way, shape, and form. And I thought by the time I got to Ganon's castle that a lot of this stuff would be reused and rehashed assets, but that's not really the case. The game still looks fresh at the very end. So the last thing I want to say about the controls is that they do allow you to use the gyro sensor in the Pro Controller, and this does allow for some pretty fun and accurate aiming with the bow and arrow. It's definitely a feature that should be included on every Switch game, but I understand why it's not. Alright, well the last thing I want to mention about the audio now is how I understand why this game is not terribly big. There is not a lot of spoken dialogue in this game, and it really does encapsulate that. I enjoy this because it almost feeds into Link's silent protagonist, but at the same time, it's a brilliant and clever move to allow them to keep the file size down while making a uniquely large game with a lot of good graphics. Alright, well, with all of those categories out of the way, it's time for the conclusion, and let's see if this game is worth it. Oh, absolutely it's worth it. I'm not even going to pause on that. I'm not even going to hesitate. This is definitely a top 2 or 3 game on the Switch. There's not a person out there who hasn't played this game who doesn't agree with that statement, and that's saying something. This game had a 110% attach rate at launch. That says a lot. When this game came out, it not only fulfilled a lot of dreams for me and a lot of other people, but it gave us a lot of hope for the future of Zelda. We didn't really know where it could go after something like Skyward Sword or Wind Waker or Twilight Princess because it seemed like they'd used most of the ideas up. Then this game came out and totally changed everything. This game has set the precedence for a Zelda game for the next decade, and the precedence for open world games in general. You're not going to find something that has a better open world score on it than this. The absolute conclusion for me is that this is a game that all other developers should set as their bar and their standard for completion. If you come close to achieving the goal that Nintendo achieved with this game, then your game will be gold. I have nothing more to say. I have gushed my heart about this game, and I love it. Thank you, Mr. Miyamoto. And thank you for watching this video. It was a blast to make. I upload every single Monday. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. And have yourself a great rest of your day. This is Ogre 27 Kane, signing out.